I think we are live. It looks like we have proper audio and video. Yeah, here we go. Is the transmitter still working?
I would say so.
She's working.
All right, all the wiggle meters look like they should be doing what they're doing. And at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I think the Old Tube Radio Network is ready to try it out here. So indeed, I will say hello. My name is Dennis, Net Control for the Old Tube Radio Network. 8 o'clock in the Central Valley of California, 27085, the frequency that we are monitoring, that's channel 11. We'll be listening for our tube radio operators running their vintage classic radios from 1958 and 1959 when they started producing them for Class D, up to about 1978 when it was solid state all the way. A reminder that the Old Tube Radio Network is not a club, just a voluntary association of people who are interested in the old tube radios. And we welcome anyone to participate. No secret handshake, no dues to pay. You don't need to have a number and or have ever listened to or checked in before. We certainly want to hear you if you're on a tube radio tonight and you are within the DX zone. Also streaming at oldtuberadio.net. Hello to those who are listening in and the video up on YouTube. Hello to all of you who may be watching live. This is the program for the 8th of February 2020. And we do keep the videos up for a while in the show archived and the audio portion. Also, let's see, before we start the roll call tonight, say hello to those who might be listening in from some of the great Facebook CB sites, Antique CB Radio pre-1977, the CB Radio Lounge, the CB Radio Connection, High Fidelity CB Radio, the 11-meter CB Junkies, Vintage CB Radio, fans of Demco CB radios and related equipment. I don't know if we'll get some Demco radios tonight. You just never know. Vintage Tube CB Radio. Hello to the worldwide sidebanders listening in tonight. And Rich Anderson and all the gang out there at CB Radio News. Let's get started. On the directed net roll call, where our current 00. Who is our current 00? I think that's that guy out in Sanger. Hello, 00, if you're there.
Hello, Dennis. 00 checking in.
All right, sounding great. Let me get the 00 checked in, and what I need to do is get, I think I need that, and I need that. There we go. Let's see if you're checked in, if you're following along in the video, and I can follow along to make sure I don't mess up, because I wouldn't want to get fired. I've got this great, I'm in the OTR outfit. I've got the official OTR shirt that's somewhere got my SWL number on it, so I can remember that, and then the classic. What is it Rip Taylor used to say? The Sears sucker suit. Yes, I am the sucker that bought it at Sears. Also checking in, SWL number 1 via the Cosmic check-in. And somewhere lurking on the video page is Mr. OBP. Out there, if you're still on, Kevin, I think you are. Just seeing if you had any sunspot numbers for us. It's been very quiet here on the West Coast. I heard some of the guys talking about conditions opening up on sideband and 28. I don't think JT tonight on the, and I could be wrong. I could be way off of the ground rod here, but I don't think he was talking skip tonight on the Tram Titan 2. I'm starting to like that radio more and more. I passed one up that I should have got when Bill was selling radios, but it just wasn't the right time for me to buy stuff. SWL number 3 checking in. Rob, who says hello to everybody. Saw him at the bowling alley the other night. SWL number 4. SWL 5, I saw Ida, Mama Rose, today, and she was looking good. And she said hello to all the SWLs and tube radio operators. Ida, Mama Rose, one of their longtime net controllers from long ago. SWL 6. Giving me a radio check early before the net, SWL 7, who is away from the coiled cord microphonium, but said he might actually be in the radio room before we sign off tonight. Then we head over to SWL 13. And there is Mike right on the top page, waving a hand, jumping up and down. Actually, he's not jumping up and down. I can see it just fine, Mike. Mr. Cobra, we got you checked in. Over to SWL 14. SWL 15. And I will check Facebook and the appropriate items of interest if you've checked in or are checking in there to make sure we get you in there. SWL 17. And JT says he talked to St. Louis. Okay, well, Channel 12, I haven't heard a thing on 11. Old Radio Night usually hangs it on 12, which is a good spot. We have to use 11 here because a lot of the single channel CBs, if there was going to be a channel in them, Channel 11 was one of them, so it made things easier, and we get more check-ins that way if we're hanging out in the right channel. SWL 18. Checking in Mikey from Facebook, SWL 19. And I don't show a pre-proxy in for this guy, so let's give a shout out to SWL 20. I'll check him in. I could have been remiss. The post-it that says "Please check me in" could have flown off of there. Looking good. I really like the that S meter on the tram. That's the big one that shows up in the TR27E or 27. The CE series. Looks like an SWL meter on the tram tonight. Mr. JT from Wasama Swamps, or the swamp. The groundwater is quarantined tonight. Yeah, for 14 weeks or for 14 days, right? Just in case. It's down so far, it's coming through China. That's probably not a bad idea. So give it 2 weeks and you'll be back on the air. Thank you, JT. Enjoyed the program tonight. SWL 22. Just checking the list here. Let's mark out in East Texas. SWL 23. SWL 24. And yes, after the roll call here in about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, we will be talking to the tube radios. SWL 25.
Hello, Dennis. 25 checking in.
All right, you've got it cranked up tonight, sounding good. Over.
Thank you, Dennis. And when 74 comes around, Mike proxy your end. So thank you.
I will do that. Heading over to page 2. And Dwayne is just tapping his fingers on the table, wondering if I'm ever going to get the crossband radios and the antennas hooked up. I'm hoping to have more time to actually do that. So my apologies, Dwayne. But let's give you a call. SWL 27.
I am tapping my fingers, but I'm here on AM tonight. Number 27's checking in.
And sounding good on the amplitude modulated mode. Dwayne, you are one of the net controllers on the Wednesday night sideband net, right?
Roger that.
All right, so there's a voice you can hear if you like the SWL on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. Pacific time on 10 meters, 28,445. Listen in, open to all. The skip is in with your licensed amateur radio call on Wednesday evenings at 28,445 on the sideband net. Thank you, Dwayne.
Roger that. Thanks, Dennis.
And maybe in a couple of years, we'll have a 10-meter AM net. Getting all the good radios in. Let me say hello. Let's go over to the big list here as we are on page 2. Top of the page, Hagerson, who often jumps into the front row. I think he just has to get here early because it's so far away. Also, New York, San Jose, hello to Minnesota. Another New York station, staying up late, getting in early, I guess. Coming up to Hendersonville, Tennessee in a short order. San Francisco, that could be Madman Mitch. In fact, you know what? Did I miss you? Why did I missed SWL23. Why did I go over you? He's probably saying, what the heck? This guy's been doing this for 35 years and he can't even count. Mitch, look on the big board. Let me get you checked in. I guess it's because you're so new. I'm used to either calling it or ignoring it. So Mitch is in from San Francisco. He mentioned the boson. Where is Bozo? Is Bozo here tonight? I don't even have, I'm not in, hold on. I need to have the external receiver up back here. And where's the video? If their video is there, I'm blocking, okay. Yeah, I'm just not sitting in the right spot. There is the Bozo, one of them. There are thousands here, and I'm not kidding. Who else? We've got Dallas, Georgia, of course. Woodland Park, Colorado, waiting for the E-Skip. Somerville, South Carolina. The Wasama Swap, Centerville, Virginia, coming up to you. Hello to Mariposa, just up in the hills here, not too far away. Washington, the trio out of Squamish, hanging on to the antenna, holding for some skip. Fayetteville, North Carolina, in the top row, along with San Diego. I was there last year for the National Federation of Public Broadcasters Convention. What a great place. Here we go. What am I looking for? SWL 29, I got a proxy in for Mr. Loner. And then Robert and Teresa, SWL 31, who can do some damage on the airwaves with their tube radio collections that they have, some of which are actually hidden in the pictures section on the Old Tube Radio Network Facebook page. Over to SWL 32. SWL 33, myself, Bozo Control, the Jingle Singers. I tested them so much prior to the net. We didn't do anything when we started. But we'll do something after the roll call here. Over to SWL 34. SWL 35, let me scroll down and refresh the page to see what's happening in Cheyenne, Wyoming tonight. There's Bill. And snowy, yeah, there's snow all over. There's snow in Georgia, snow up in Idaho. It got cold here. It was 68, 69 today. It was actually kind of nice. So that's a good thing. How about SWL 36? SWL 37.
37 here, Dennis, and good evening.
Good evening. Don't know if it's movie night tonight, but I hope you have picked out a good one.
Well, watching, what is that? That one. We're back to Robin Gold and I can't remember the name of the movie. Anyway, there was in Italy getting the money. So.
All right, the only one I remember is from about 40 years ago. I think it was called Who's Minding the Mint? With a cast of wacky characters. You are sounding, and some wacky carriers as well. You are sounding good, and perhaps we will catch you when the radios start glowing in the dark.
Good possibility.
This is the good possibility frequency. We are looking for SWL 38, SWL 39, SWL 40. And X4000, who also shows up under the San Francisco moniker. San Jose. San Jose could be Mitch. I don't know. I always try to guess the QTHs here. Hello, X4000. Waving a hand or something to Old Tube Radio Network. SWL 41, SWL 42, SWL 43. SWL 44, who is in, but maybe in and out of the Radio Shack tonight, making sure that he doesn't get in trouble with the big boss. But Ray, I saw your post there, and you are checked in. Up to North Fork, foothills above Fresno, above the Central Valley here for SWL 45.
Sounds good, Dennis. 45.
All right, whatever it is that's working, we'll be talking to it soon when the radios start checking in. Thanks. SWL 46. SWL 47. SWL 48. Sometimes Sam gets checked in at Facebook, and that's a good way to do it. Let me put on my high-fidelity headphoniums, SWL 49.
Now, the last time we spoke, my IMAX was literally sitting about 2 feet off the ground, and now it is about 25 feet off the ground, so I'm hoping to have gained at least one S unit. Hello, Dennis. Hello to the SWLs. The 49er is checking in.
Sounding good, Brian. I've got S9 on the meter. Also got some SWRs going on here. And it sounds marvelous as always. Full quieting here tonight.
Well, thank you much, and there is my S unit I was looking for, so all is well. Have gained a bit, so happy with that. Hey, thank you much for the check-in.
Yeah, hopefully when I get whatever I'm going to put in the air up a little bit higher, everybody will go up. Everybody wins. And then I'll probably be able to be heard in Reedley. Some fine audio indeed. Also, hello to Larry, 225, our San Diego station, listening in tonight. So he says he's pretty much locked the door on the shack. That's true, with cycle 25 just kind of peeking in. That's where SWLing comes in. Where you pull out the long wire in the SWL radio and you start checking out the other bands and see what's happening and listening to those 100,000 watts shortwave radio stations and the 100,000 watt contesters on 20 meters. Directed net roll call, real radios coming up looking for SWL 50. And the 2-for-1 special, the guy that got things started off as 00, SWL 51.
5-1, checking in.
And doing good. See, if that was me, I would have broken my radio in between that time, but Dave is still up and running. Thanks. SWL 52. SWL 53.
Hello, Dennis, 53, checking in.
Hello, Mr. Belair. We've got you checked in on your old tube radio network.
Very much.
Over to page 3 for those playing the home game. Spinning the big wheel. Maybe we should do it that way. Just spin a wheel, and whatever number pops up, that's who we'll get to check in at the moment. We would take probably 10 hours to do the net that way. A cosmic check-in for Mr. Board Jammer, SWL 54, who is no doubt quality checking all the radios as they fire up tonight to make sure they pass the muster of the old tube radio network. Over to SWL 55.
55, checking in, Dennis.
Beaconing into the flatlands here and sounding good doing it. Thank you, M&M.
Dennis.
Over to SWL 56.
Break OTR.
And the break OTR, go ahead.
50, checking in.
I hear you. People watching the video said, what is he doing? I had to adjust something here in the background. But SWL 50 is checking in. Mark at the microphonium on page 2. And looking good, thanks. I called 56. Let me call 56 again. away from the radio. Hopefully he's not quarantined tonight. And the station who I know is definitely out there working skip. Working skip when it doesn't exist. On sideband. WWS 1942 out of Central Kentucky. Brown Dog Audio is hanging out tonight on the video side with an ear to all the radios in the shack, waiting for something interesting to happen. Well, hopefully we will have some interesting things, including the roll call tonight, but when it comes to tube radios, over to SWL 58.
58, check in. Thank you, Dennis.
All right, another one of those big audios beaconing out of Biola Kerman, Riverdale, Yedem, and all points south, north, east, and west. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. You caught me off guard. Sorry for the delay there, sir.
Okay, not a problem. Off Guard is my middle name when it comes to the old Tube Radio Network. Over to SWL 59. SWL 60.
Evening time to you, Dennis, and all the SWLs. And hello to that 53, Mr. Bell there, if you got a copy. Doggone it, let's get Big Jake's bass checked in, the 2527, the DX 2527.
Putting the X in the square, the DX 2527, the 2901. Radio sounding good tonight. Thank you, Joe. SWL 61.
61 checking in, Dennis.
Right there, I will click the button, and it is official. Thank you, Dean. Beautiful downtown Clovis, SWL 62. SWL 63, Bubba B and the New York crew, wherever you might be. Big Iron on the East Coast audio net. Hello to Brooklyn and Derby and stations close by. Tuning in. Hoping to get a old tube radio fix tonight. SWL 64. SWL 65.
65 checking in.
Sounding good tonight, Eric, as always. And the X is in the square. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
The old Tube Radio Network. Here in 35 years, 36 years, I've lost count. It was in the mid-1980s when a group of us who were running all sorts of radios, but indeed had the classic tube radios, decided it was time to get away from the noise and chatter of what were we on a channel level 14, come down to channel 11 and talk and talk on our radios the way that you talked on a radio when it was brand new and it had tubes in it. And that's what we're going to do tonight with our tube radio operators. Let's try SWL 66. SWL 67. Shortwave listener 68. SWL 69. And I'll get a check in for Bill 67. Let me do that. And also Kenny, who may be listening and or watching this at some point. Hi, Ken. Miss you here in the Central Valley. I know you're radioactive at other places as well. Up to the Morgan Canyon Magician, SWL 70. And Mark is the guy that checked me in on the Wednesday night net. He's one of the net controllers there. Let's try Mr. Announcer. There he is, SWL 71. Stan, who is in Dallas, Georgia. You know, I did not turn on or seriously listen to any amateur HF stuff this week. So what's going on? Working the Classic Exchange CX contest tomorrow. Was given a boat anchor, Yaesu FT-101B. I have a 101 and a 101E. That's sort of what one of the rigs I used to do here long, long ago. It works well. Sometimes it can be a little tricky on sideband to make sure you actually get tuned into the stations you're talking to, but it doesn't have that clarifier. I don't think the B did. But they sound good on sideband. They sound great on AM. So it's a CX exchange, the classic exchange. You can work it with any radio, but extra points for an old rig. I know I will be busy during the transmitter, tuning the transmitter every change I change bands. Yeah, because you got to... It's like my 101, or it's like my 102 here. You got to plate and load, and the only nice thing about that's got the digital thing, and then check your carrier. But that's part of driving. That's part of driving the old rigs. That's why you should get some extra points, Stan. Good for you. Who's next? SWL 72. I'll listen in for that classic exchange. I don't think anybody's going to hear me if I try and put the Starduster through the tuner, but you never know. The IMAX, the 2000, used to go down to about 17, 12, was pretty good, but they're not going to be open. Might be able to do it on 40 meters. If there's something on 40, might try that. Although I won't hear Stan during the day. He's out in Foreland, which I would be probably hearing him right now if he was out there. SWL 73. Checking in, SWL 74, Ms. Jilly. SWL 75. SWL 77. And 44 is still pulling wires. Make sure you pull the correct wires. I do that here, or Bozo Control does that here. He starts pulling wires, and it's inevitably the wrong wires. SWL 78. Richard up in Everett. I see Spokane. I got a couple of Washington stations. Meade, I don't think. Looking to see if I'm missing anybody here. There's Albert, Peter, and Christian up there in Squamish. Okay, nothing yet, so I want to make sure we get everybody before we start the radios, but you can check in anytime. That takes us to SWL 79. Shortwave listener 80. Over to page 4, the patient people, and one of them for sure is this guy, Steve Areno, Mr. Unicorn, SWL 81, who is out in the Radio Shack tonight, tuning in. Mr. Unicorn saying hello and wishing everyone a good evening. And right back to you, sir. Over to SWL 82. And I'm going to give 82 a check-in because I think I was supposed to do that. SWL 84. And the Curious Kid did mention that his 11 meters stuff wasn't quite doing what it should do, so I will get him and the gang checked in. Over to SWL 85. Was that you, John? Over? Yeah, okay. I hear you. You've got the wires connected. Okay, and I was also hearing Robert in Reedley Town. He was actually sounding good, but he said he had a lot of interference and static and signed off. So I will definitely get him checked in, as well as one of our other trios here, 86, 87, and 88. That's Mount Maid, Tandy Girl, and Snowy Owl. Over to Mr. YLE, SWL 89. SWL 90. SWL 92. SWL 93. Shortwave listener 98.
Continue, Dennis.
98, that is Dave. Always get a lot of X's. Dave was, when he was in Monterey, we usually had to wait like one check-in out of the 8 weeks when he would make the trek over the pass there and down into the Central Valley. But 544 is live and direct. Thank you, sir.
Dennis.
SWL 103. I wonder if Jeff has got that mobile radio up and running. SWL 109. Radio's coming up in less than 10 minutes. SWL 110. 111 checked in earlier. He's on the recording here somewhere, sounding good. I've got you checked in, Robert, if you are listening. Over. SWL 113. SWL 114.
114 checking in, and can you proxy the dispatch of Biola 82?
114 in the air chair, live and direct at the microphonium. Yes, Wayne, I will do that. I will get you checked in and also get Mr. Bones 82 checked in as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then over to digital listener side, SWL 128. And John Lee is checking in tonight from Fairfax, Virginia, I think. I don't think he's in a remote location tonight. How about SWL 131? SWL 133. Hey, I hear you. I hear you there, Dave, out of Northwest Fresno. 133 is checked in. Thank you. SWL 135. Got a request to proxy in Mr. Green Arrow, which I will do. SWL 137. SWL 145.
145 checking in. I'm having some microphone difficulties.
All right, you are 100% audio-wise here on this channel tonight. I think I heard you in on the 10-meter net Wednesday night, sounding good, but excellent copy tonight. Over.
All right, thank you, Dennis.
That's usually the one thing I don't have is a problem with the microphone. It's all the stuff that happens after it goes into all the junk over here. Meaning that the microphone should be plugged directly into the radio. That's the best way to do it. So Tony is in out of Coarse Gold, and then we head over to Kakalaki 147. I think I saw Mr. Neil talking to us all earlier in the scroll down list. Where did you go? There it is. In the house tonight, Thursday, 2 inches of rain. 2 inches of rain. That takes months to do here. Tonight below 30 degrees. That sounds like snow. But maybe not. That's Carolina for you. Don't like the weather? Wait an hour or two, and it'll change. Not so much around here. I guess that's the Gulf Stream when it moves up and down and does its thing. Frodex is in Lawrence, Kansas. He says the same thing. It'll be 75, and then it'll be 17. Is the luck of the draw. Radio's very quiet. I've been hearing that all over. Radios have been quiet tonight. And don't hog all the sunspots. I think that was a song by somebody. Don't hog all the sunspots. Maybe it should be. 73s from 887 in the Carolina Sandhills. Thank you for the report and update 147. Let's head up to a place where it was probably really nice today, I bet. SWL 195. Up there in Coarse Gold, when it's usually yucky and foggy here at Coarse Gold, has the sun just shining, or maybe the stars, as in the Coarse Gold Starliner. Thank you, Jim. SWL 226. And in the other stations or comments or things, I will stand by here before we jump over and switch things for the tube radios, but OTR is listening.
Late check-in.
Hey, not a problem. I think I did well. I managed to remember all the proxy check-ins. And hopefully everything is A-OK in the Radio Shack tonight. Over.
But did you remember me?
Well, I am changing your previous check-in that says P for proxy to an X in the square, meaning that you were heard and detected. Over.
Oh, I'm heard and defective. Okay. Yeah, I made it back just, I guess, a little while ago from work, so. Okay, I'll probably check this one in a little bit later. So just check me in. I believe I heard on the stream you checked everybody in, as you just said, so there we go. Okay, we'll turn it back to you, and I'm going to go back in, rest for a little bit, and I'll be back out.
Okay, we will be here for at least another 90 minutes talking with the vintage tube radios here on the old Tube Radio Network. Central California is where we're at, 27085. If you'd like to join us with whatever radio you might have, but we're going to be looking for the tube radios coming up. And if you're somewhere else, join us on the YouTube video site with your comments. Maybe you were on a tube radio or something this week. Let us know about that. And our digital shortwave listeners listening in at oldtuberadio.net. The jingle singers say, let's test out the wires before I switch things over to the tube radios. So here we go. If I can open their connection on the old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? Greetings to you, wherever you are. For music and the latest news from home and from afar, the station for you is
OTR, Old Tube Radio.
The station for you is
OTR.
And back in a moment with your old tube radios. And then the big orchestra said,
you may not find us on your TV, because in case you did not know, we're being brought to you by
OTR.
Brought to you by
27.085 megahertz.
Brought to you by RADI.
The Old Tube Radio Network.
RADIO. You gotta love radio. We've added pictures. Hello to those watching YouTube, but we'll be focusing on RADIO, especially those with the tubes, the old tube radios from 1958 to 1978. You may have a few in your collection, and we'd like to hear from those who are close enough to give us some transmissions tonight, but there are a lot of you watching and listening that have the classic tube radios from Heathkit to Hammarlund to Hallicrafters to Sonar to Browning to those ones that you just don't hear about too often. Hopefully we'll get some nice ones and some rare ones. So let me stop talking and say this is the Old Tube Radio Network listening.
45.
25.
And to Heard, hello to Paul at 8:39 Pacific Standard Time. Paul, step up into the air chair. We'll get you on the first radio tonight. And Jerry, I know you like to jump into the into the green room, see what the jingle singers are up to. Mr. Announcer, please do that, and we will call you shortly as radio number 2. In the meantime, hello, 45, over.
Hi, Dennis. I want to check in my general radio telephone, SP-72.
All right, I've got you. Sounds like there might be something that's not connected just right. For a second, you came in super loud and clear. I hear you fine on the general radio telephone SB72. I mentioned something about rare radios, and this is one of them. And we actually have a picture that is from your collection. Let me add the radio and the S meter. If you can hear me, take another transmission. Let's see if it's going to behave or not. Over.
Okay. Yeah. This microphone, I was going to change the thing, and I wish I had it now. I hope you can make it through the night. Anyway, you hear me pretty well, then we'll see what we got.
Okay, I can hear you. The audio's a little rough. It sounds like there is something that is not making a good connection. Not sure it's the microphone. Microphone's keying. Could be in the rig. Let's keep using it. Sometimes these radios, like old cars, just need to be driven around the block. So what we'll be talking about, and you are talking on, is the SB72. I've got a picture up at oldtuberadio.net, and on the video, we'll go back to you for a transmission on this very rare radio from General Radio Telephone. Over.
Okay. Well, this is probably the first, pretty close to the first radio, the sideband radio that was made for the CB area. So it was in 1964, I believe, in between the MC5 and the MC6 radios when they manufactured it. So it was been in there for a few years. Really pretty radio. The thing is just amazing. They pack all the tubes. This thing's got 13 tubes in this thing. So it's always a good sized radio. And it just trying to read everything on it. Sometimes I like to tell you about what Bob Mellon said about it, but it takes a while to read it. But he wrote for the Woody World magazine, which is no longer in business. He wrote an article on it. And by the way, he was a great friend. He had a great collection of radios down in Long Beach. Anyway, he passed away here a few years ago. Anyway, this radio was one of the first, if not the first SB 11-meter radios in America, is what he said. They had a lot of trouble with the radio, which cost General a lot of money. They never sold enough units to cover the cost, and in respect, it was a bad idea. So that's when they were having the trouble. And General Radio Telephone, they did jump a lot. Boy, they're excellent company, beautiful, but they get on a terror, they go for it. Back to you, Dennis.
They certainly do. Perfect transmission. The malady that we were hearing on the first couple of transmissions went away. Your carrier came up to full carrier. It almost sounded like it was a suppressed carrier, but the audio came up. The carrier came up sounding most excellent. I've got a great picture from your collection, the SB72. About the time, like you said, about the time of the MC5, so this would be 1962 or 1963 when General Radio Telephone from Burbank, California, came up with this 13-tube single sideband transceiver. Yes, that's right, a single sideband transceiver in 1963. General was certainly ahead of its time when they brought out this radio. One of the first, I don't know if it was absolute first, but one of the first SSB 11-meter radios in America with the 24 channels, upper sideband, lower sideband, AM, probably has the Civil Air Patrol. It's got a dual conversion receiver. Also has the Collins mechanical filter. I was looking for a price on this. I'm sure this should have been well above $200. With their price point was normally around $200 for their other radios. It used one crystal for transmit and one for receive. And indeed, it does have the Civil Air Patrol. It could go 12-volt DC, so you could run it mobile. But one of the issues, like Paul was saying, they did have some technical issues. And the other thing was, unless you were probably talking with some of your friends that may have had an older non-Class D radio that had sideband in it, if you wanted to use sideband, you would have to have someone would have to have another SB72. So sometimes when you're the first kid on the block, or the new kid on the block or whatever, it's a little rough to find friends. But I'm glad you have that in your collection. Paul has many of the General Radio telephones. Let's see if it's still hanging in there on the 100% modulation. So we'll go back to you for transmission. Over.
Okay. Keep my fingers crossed. It'll work. Well, this thing sold for $599.50. That was in 1964. That's what I got. It's about the same price as MC100, which is the only one around. Can't the whole thing is made, and Harvey has one of them. Lucky guy. Anyway, that's about it. Love the radio's got a lot of lights on the thing, and right, and it's got a pretty good meter on it. I mean, when you put the thing in, it's got AFP and RFP and all that right there. We put it with a knob, so it's pretty nice. And with this mechanical filter, this radio is really, really good. Anyway, I dropped down, I think.
Okay, I switched the picture to include the S meter. So if you're watching the video, if you watch the replay of the video, you will see that when you have the issue, your carrier drops a couple of S units actually, and then the radio almost tries to go into a double sideband suppressed carrier, but I'm sure that's not what it's doing. It sounds like it's off frequency, but in the last part of that transmission, I went to the 0 beat on the sideband, and you are right there. So it's not a frequency shift. Something else happening there, but your prior transmission was 100% all the way around. So we will log that one in as the good one, and anybody wants to listen to that, see if they can even find an SB72. That's what it should sound like if you're looking for one or have one. And when it's working better, maybe we'll try it out in true sideband. We'll switch over to the upper lower side and see how it works. From General Radio Telephone, and Paul, one of our longtime collectors and a great General Radio telephone aficionado, the SB72. And when you bring that by again next time, and I know that you will, and it's working 100%, we'll talk about Mr. Milam and his collection. I'd like to know more about that, but I'm glad you were an acquaintance with him, because that has given us a lot. He's given us a lot of great information and some radios as well here at OTR. So thanks, Paul, for getting us started with radio number 1.
Thanks for checking it in, Dennis.
And it's working well. The Old Tube Radio Network, real radios glowing in the dark. My name is Dennis, Net Controller. We are in Central California. And a lot of the radios that you will hear tonight are collectors from the local area. We've been doing this for 35 years, so we have quite a few people who have dug through the garages and the closets and Uncle Fred's radio collection and said, hey, look, there's a tube radio, and we provide a forum to get them up and running, drive them around the block at least once a week here on the Old Tube Radio Network. Stepping up into the air chair from whatever goes on in the green room. Hello, Jerry, over.
Well, Dennis, I'm happy to report that the Jingle Singers are absolutely having a blast. They're passing around some kind of brownies, but I did not partake, but they all seem to be in a very good mood. But anyway, 25 checking in on a Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB. I know you know this radio, 2-piece radio. The red on the air line is on, and actually, I just checking it in because that's the radio that was hooked up from last week. And talking on non-powered D104 Lollipop microphone. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
Break OTR.
And break OTR. Be right with you. The Browning Golden Eagle. I remember from last week, we were doing a mic test. It almost sounds like it's got so much audio. I thought, well, maybe you had put the amplified D104 on there. because it is, as number 8 would say, loud and proud for radio number 2. You know, this is California, so I don't know about the brownies. I know I make brownies and take them over there, but it's from a Betty Crocker mix. So maybe you got some other type of brownies. Hold on one. I want to pick up the breaking station. We're talking with Jerry, who is on his Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB, similar to the one we're looking at. This is not from his collection. But if you're not familiar with the Browning radios there and the Mark III, which was their super deluxe model from 1972 to 1976, the transmitter and the receiver, both with sideband capable, and very expensive for the day. So hang on one, Jerry. The breaking station on OTR, go ahead. We're having some trouble keying up there, but we're here. We're here for a while, so don't go away. We'll be able to chat with you and answer your questions if necessary. But right now, Radio 2 on the line. Take another transmission, 25 over.
Yeah, okay, Dennis. I'm not... Normally, I use the banana mic on this particular radio, so what I did, I thought maybe I'm overdriving it or in the mic too much. So I backed off. I'm a good 14 inches away from the mic now, so maybe that's a little better on the transmission. But yeah, I normally use the banana mic, and I could probably switch it real quick to get a difference. But I didn't realize that this would be that hot. I was about 6 inches, and I'm about a foot away. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
I think that helped. I think that helped with the clarity. I mean, it's hard to overdrive. If you're overdriving a Browning, you're doing something. They can take all sorts of audio abuse. I think that's a good distance for what you're doing on the microphone. I mean, it certainly is loud. Just listening, you think, okay, that guy's 20 over. You know, the S meter, and it's like, well, that's not quite 20 over, but it sounds like it. And Stan, I missed chiming in on the SWL side. Stan mentioned about the SB72. I'll check that out. 65 could be right. I know in 63 they actually had a prototype on the General Radio Telephone MC5 that was a sideband unit, and I think $399 sounds more in the price range I was thinking. Especially, I think if they priced something much more than that back then, they wouldn't have many takers. So I'll have to take a look at Retrocom. But yeah, the information I was on that was showing 63. But obviously in that time frame, Browning Golden Eagle SSB. Do you have Ed on his Browning? Jerry has a switch in the back or somewhere where he can adjust and modify the length of the ping. I wonder if you have something like that going on with your General Radio telephone.
Oh, this is the Browning, but by the way, I switched over to the banana mic. But yeah, I do have a switch. It's just a toggle switch that eliminates the ping, or you can have the ping, but there's no adjustment. It's either in or out. So anyway, here it is on the banana mic, I believe made by Electro Voice. So anyway, I'm a good 12 inches away from it, so maybe that's a little milder than the D104. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
A little bit, yeah, I misspoke. I was talking about General Radio telephones, but we are talking about Golden Eagles, Brownings, the Golden Eagle Mark III, specifically the one you are on. Still has the bright-sounding Browning audio, so no problem. It sounds good where you've got it. So don't make any changes, and I think you are good to go. And there are other ways to modify the ping on the Browning. You can adjust the squelch up so that the receiver isn't open. You can have less mic gain and more mic gain. When I was running the one I had here through the audio board, you could do all sorts of interesting things by EQing, by poorly EQing the microphone circuit, and then the receiver hears that itself through the microphone and does interesting things. So they can be kind of suited, like putting salt on the salad. You can add a little bit more, add a little less to get the sound that you want. Radio number 2, the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB. What was my thing I was going to say? $650 to $750. So in that $700 price range. But this was 1972. So like we said before, you go out to the car dealership and you buy the used Pinto, or you keep your $750 and you buy a Browning Golden Eagle Mark III. What was the better deal there? Which one lasted longer? I would say the Browning Mark III. Give us another transmission. Thanks for bringing it by.
Hey, no problem, Dennis. And by the way, Miss Julie says hello, and she one of these days when it gets a little warmer, she's going to check in on her 50,000 watt Antuna. Anyway, back to you, Dennis, and we'll see when he warms the biddles up.
All right, thanks for bringing that by here on the Old Tube Radio Network. Jingle Singers are ready. It's not quite the top of the hour, but they want to tell us. They are so excited about Tube Radios that they want to tell us all about them.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, your favorite slot on the dial by far is known to you as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
And we are listening for radio number 3.
45.
And there is Paul. Boy, that has got some big audio when you fire into the relay there. Hello, Paul. Over.
Yeah, well, leave it to a T-Craft Falcon. That's what I'm talking on. Yeah, you might as well look that one up. Neat old radio. There's nothing at all like that radio was on before, and I'll tell you that. But it's bare bones. I think it's one of the first ones they put out, 1959, and it sold for $144.95. Back to you.
All right, looking for the T-Craft here, saying you're on the Falcon. I can even hear it. It kind of thumps. The relay thumps when it keys up. And boy, the audio just comes in super, super loud. Not a lot of variation on the meter, but I'll grab the radio. Boy, that is something. It sounds every bit as good as a Buddy bass. There it is, the T-Craft Falcon. Interesting. We'll put up the full screen and take another transmission.
Well, as you can see, I'm drifting real bad on this VFO, so if I lose you for a little bit, I'll come back. And it's got a toggle switch for the off and on, which I love. Great, it's a metal toggle switch, not plastic, metal. Right to the left of that, it's a squelch. Right down from that is the volume, and then it goes down to the crystals. It's only got crystals for transmit. Don't have crystals for receive, so you're strictly on the VFO. So if I drift away, that'll be the problem. Speaker's on the right-hand side, and the neat thing about this thing is I can put the speaker inside the radio on the left-hand side. There's a compartment you can slide it in there. I'm a little limited on the cord size, but I can lead in pretty close to it and talk to it. Back to you.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I had other photos of the radio, which I don't, but we can see the microphone on the side, and it has its own little storage compartment. I wonder if that was something they thought would be good for mobile radio or whatever, but you don't have the microphone on the desk. And hello to, I think it was KKJ or KIJ 2125. Listening in and checking in on his Johnson Viking Messenger that probably was around at the same time that the T-Craft Falcon was, one of the early 1960 radios, 11 tubes, 5 channels, crystal controlled. Of course, they all had to be crystal controlled. And then you had the 23-channel receiver. That was a way to give you all 23 channels and not have to pay that extra $3 for each crystal to put in there, and then you would just keep crystal control with your transmitter. So hopefully you are tweaking on the VFO dial just a little bit and have me tuned in Great. We'll check your transmit, Crystal, on the next go-around and see how the T-Craft is holding up on 27085 over.
Yeah, well, I see they're working. It's pretty good size radio. It's 14 inches wide, 5 inches high, and 10 inches deep. So it's pretty good size. It weighs 12 pounds. It's a pretty good load on the dash. So you can do it if you wanted to. That's about all I got for it. And I sold it $144.95. You can get it back then. Back to you.
And that was still 1960, 1959, an investment for what was not supposed to be hobby communications, more business and personal communications on the citizen radio service. You'd get your license, and in theory, you would need another unit. That you were supposed to be, KEO 8492 base to Unit 1 or something like that. But boy, just really decent audio. I'll go to the control room with the S-meter, so if you are, and we'll have you take another transmission. I checked. Frequency is good. The crystals are hanging right in at 27084.7, so about 300 cycles low, well within the FCC's realm of 700 cycles. So take another transmission before you go, and that way we'll get the video imprinted with the S-meter reading as well. Over.
Yeah, okay. Well, you won't need to see the S-meter on this one. It doesn't have one. But anyway, it's a real neat old radio with bare bones. Big, and tell you what, T-Craft, I got a 5, maybe I'm going to check it in one of these days. It's really something else, too. They made a heck of a little radio, and the receive on the thing is so quiet. It's unbelievable. Anyway, that's about all I got. So, thanks again, Dennis.
And thank you, Paul, for bringing by the T-Craft Falcon. Like old cars, if you go back, in the 30s and 40s, there were a lot of manufacturers. This wasn't the big three, and as time progressed, a lot of the smaller manufacturers sort of fell by the wayside. Same thing with CB radios. You go into 1959, 60, 61, 62, there were a lot of companies that were trying their hand at this new Class D 11-meter thing. Some of them did quite well. Some of them had engineering backgrounds of producing other things. I don't know what T-Craft did when they weren't producing CB radios, but they certainly did that one well, and a neat idea. I guess it never caught on was a place to store your microphonium when it is not in use. The Old Tube Radio Network, real radios glowing in the dark. We are talking with our vintage radio collectors here in Central California tonight as they take time out of their Saturday evenings. We appreciate that. Maybe you have to sneak away from whatever is going on, and they know the radio is warming up and give us a 5-minute transmission like they used to do back in the day. Looking for radio number 4. And the channel, the band is quite not a lot of static. It doesn't have that noise. Sometimes when the E-skip, the band is going to open up, you'll hear a little bit more static. Seems to be pretty quiet. Hello to our news stations running in where it's raining and 38 at 5 o'clock in the morning in the UK in Bathgate or somewhere near that. Hello to you from the Old Tube Radio Network. One of our faithful digital listeners in Germantown, Wisconsin, listening in tonight, early Sunday morning, and Stuart, Florida, or somewhere near there, tuning in. You usually hear the 4 stations. Usually hear 4 land really good on 20 meters. Have a nice pipeline here from the West Coast into Florida. The Old Tube Radio Network is listening.
25.
And hello, 25. Step up into the air chair. Talking to Ron, who's watching XYI, looks like, with the Johnson Messenger Viking with the Black Cat app. You know, Johnson had, before the 11 meter, they had their big 80-pound radios, the Viking, the Valiant, the Ranger. And all of those were not Class D, but a lot of those had 11 meters. So that's the other Johnson radio you want to get a hold of. Then you don't need to have the amplifier to go with it. It's already built in, although the FCC, the other ones are a little bit more FCC type accepted for 11 meters. Hello, Jerry, do you have Radio 4 over?
Roger. I'm sorry, I did not hear the other station, so my apologies. But 25 checking in on the General Radio Telephone MC5 from beautiful downtown Burbank, California. Back to you.
Beautiful downtown Burbank, the General Radio Telephone Master Control MC5. Well, the reason you did not hear the other station is one of our many listeners that we have either here on Frequency or at oldtuberadio.net or on the YouTube side, and just answering or making a comment to Ron. We appreciate those who are stopping by from the various Facebook pages, the vintage CB radio sites, and high-fidelity CB radio sites, the sideband people just checking out the Old Tube Radio Network tonight, something we've been doing here on this channel for 35 years, just recently, you know, in the 21st century, adding the audio streaming and then the video as well to share with other stations who we wish we could hear. If all the stations that were listening in, we could hear you and you could check in just one or two of your classic radios, we would probably be going all day doing this. But in the meantime, we will have to wait for Cycle 25 to come in a little bit stronger and talk to you that way. Radio number 4 is up with us now. Let me switch the picture here to the proper item of interest, and there it is, the MC5 from General Radio Telephone. Take another transmission over.
Dennis, this has kind of been a work in progress, but I think we got it close enough on frequency and maybe audio, and anyway, at least got it on the air. It's a beautiful radio. Yeah, pristine radio. It just had some tube issues, and I'm not sure what the other issues were. I'm pretty sure it was all tube. So we just totally retubed everything, and it seems to be working a little bit better. So the General Radio Telephone MC5, and talking on, I'm kind of sorry to say I'm talking on a Turner Plus 3B powered mic, and I'm not sure if this MC5 really needs a powered mic on it, but that's what I got wired up for it. So anyway, that's about it, Dennis.
Looking at your audio loudness on the OR band meter here, and it looks like you're about right. You're right where you need to be. And you are right. It probably does not need an amplified microphonium. I'm not sure how the circuit is tuned. Doesn't sound like it's fighting it or flat tomming at all. So I think you are okay there. The General Radio Telephone series, the MC series, always had that, I'll call it more of a commercial industrial look with the rack handles, although it's not a 19-inch rack mount radio, and I don't think I've ever seen them sold with any type of rack ears. But maybe that was something you could get a little bit more portable. Like the T-Craft Falcon, this is a 7 or 8 channel transmit radio. It's not full 23 transmit at dialable. Although you can obviously put 23 channels, have your crystals ready to go. But the MC5 has the tunable receive. Looks like it's got a spot switch. Also has VFO. Okay, so actually you can, if you want, use a crystal control for the receiver as well. I see you have 2 knobs there, so I'm not sure exactly how you're doing it, if you're using crystal control both for channel 11 or if you're tuning me on the big dial over.
Yeah, Dennis, I'm actually on your receive, or on my receive, I'm using the VFO, and then, of course, transmitting on the crystal control transmit. So, but yeah, I'm using the VFO. It seems that way I can dial everybody in in case someone's maybe not quite on frequency, but I've got you right, zero beated right in on my receive. Not to say that that's where my transmit is, so it could be a little different. But anyway, back to you, Dennis.
All right. Gives you the option to do that, and that wasn't an unpopular thing to do. First year was late in 1962 when this came out, priced at about just under $200. Purported to be their most advertised general radio telephone CB radio. So if you have a 1963 catalog of some type of a CB or popular mechanics or electronics, you might just see the ad for the MC5 in there. 6 volt, 12 volt, and 115 volt AC. There are still a lot of the 6 volt automobiles running the 6 volt systems around, so a lot of the radios that would go mobile really needed to have that capability. This runs all 6 volt tubes, 7 of them, 6BQ5, a 6EM5, among others. And if you are looking for a schematic, it says that at oldtuberadio.com, there actually is one. And I don't have the Sam's photo of fax where this radio is in, but obviously it would be in one of the earlier models. Let's go back to you in your radio room, Jerry, and before we sign off, because there are fans of the tone signal, there are Q-Bird fans that are wearing their, it's sort of like a football game. They're wearing their Q-Bird hats with their Q-Bird shirts, and they are ready to cheer you on as you give us the MC5 tone signal. Over.
Yeah, Dennis, and I can only imagine this would be for if you had another friend in the mobile that maybe wanted to. I'm not even sure about that, but I guarantee it'll certainly jam the frequency. So here it is. Back to you, Dennis.
Well, you definitely get 100% modulation when you do that, and it does get your attention. And you are one of the classic tube radio operators who would never use the tone signal for malicious interference. Although I do remember when I first started my CB career, if you will, back in the late 60s and 70s, there were those people that would use the tone signal for, shall we say, malicious interference. And the FCC took note of that and then told the powers that be at General Radio Telephone in beautiful downtown Burbank that the MC5, the model you have there and that we're seeing on the screen, would be the last one that they would produce that had a tone signal. And so the FCC said, or the General Radio Telephone said yes to the FCC, and the next radios, the MC6 and the MC7, had the infamous bullhorn that you could talk to the bulls, I guess. Thank you for that.
Well, you talk to the bulls. Actually, it's actually a good thing to talk to the bulls or the cows, especially on Sundays when they always gather on Sundays and have their meetings. But anyway, okay, Dennis, thanks for checking it in. Thank you.
And Big Rich 6520, yeah, in the early days, they built the noisemakers into the radio, so it's just like that one. And then the FCC said no. And then later on, then they just built them into the microphones and extra boxes and echo things and beepers and all that. But I think that's the original. Not quite a Roger beep, it's just the original noise thing. But with the thought that you would use it respectfully, E.F. Johnson had for, Ron was mentioning his whiteface. The whiteface and the blackface had a little side attachment, tone call squelch unit 2, that attached to the side of the radio. It is a must-have accessory if you're looking for one of those, and there are not many of them around. I think there might be a few of them here in OTR land. I think Phil checked in with one once. You are listening to the Old Tube Radio Network. Real radio's glowing in the dark. My name is Dennis, Net Controller for the evening. Out of the many, many net controllers that we have had over the 35 years of the Old Tube Radio Network here, the Jingle Singers have been with us all this time. But we go out of our way to make sure that they are comfortable over in the green room and they have plenty to eat, because when we ask them to do this and tell everyone about the Old Tube Radio Network, we want them to be happy.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, the friendliest station for you by far is known to all as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
And we are listening for radio number 5.
45.
Hello, Paul, up in North Fork at 9:15 here on the West Coast Pacific Time. You have located another coiled cord microphonium, or maybe it's so old that it's not even a coiled cord microphonium, but it's attached to a tube radio, methinks. Over to you.
Okay. It's not working the way I'd like it to work, but anyway, we'll have to deal with it. This is my general radio telephone, MC6.
Well, it is working. We've got audio. We've got signal coming through. And I guess we've got video as well, as soon as I can possibly find a shot of the general radio telephone MC6. And that's an apropos thing, because we just got through with an MC5, so maybe we'll be able to spy what the difference is. Of course, we're going to be looking for that bullhorn on the MC6. So give us a transmission, and I'll throw up a shot here of the MC6. It looks like it's actually from your collection. It might be the one you're talking on. Over to you.
No, I got this one from Rob here this last year or so when he was showing all this stuff. So it's, I got something a little bit more powerful than this one, but it's doing the job. I'd like to check it in. It needs to be tuned up good. Okay. Anyway, this thing is, it doesn't have the tone control on it. It's the first year it didn't come out with a tone control. Kind of irritating, because I kind of like that tone control. I never did use it, but anyway, it's been handy if I needed it. This thing has a carbon microphone on the thing. They come out, that's what the one they wanted you to run, and the modulator had made it up, or you had to almost run it with a carbon microphone. The different modulator did. So, yeah, I'm doing it with that. This is not one of the radio microphones here, and the power is not as strong. It's a stock microphone, but it's a carbon mic. That's about all I got to say about it. Back to you.
Sounding every bit as good as the MC5. Also, I've zoomed in, and indeed, the tone call has been replaced with the bullhorn. The switch is in the same position. It looks very much like the MC5. So maybe that's, I'm trying to think, that may be all the differences that they made. Now, this is interesting. The original price in 1964, when this model came out, I'm showing it as $199.95, and then in 1965 they actually dropped the price. Still 4 crystal-controlled channels. You can find more about it in Sam's CB7. Oh, you know what? This one's 8 tubes. I think the other one, the 5, was only 7 tubes. So they've added an extra tube for some reason. I'll have to compare the two, but still all 6-volt tubes with the 6 BQ5 in there as well. I think it's working. I think it's working well. It'll be archived here, so you can take a listen to it. But back to you on the MC6.
Okay. Oh boy, he decided to want to do something there for a moment. I was going to go ahead and see if I could have you listen to another microphone for this thing. I've got another mic on one of these that might be a difference on it. If you have a chance or if you have time, I'd like to do it if it is possible.
All right, we can do that. I've got the video with the S meter. Looks like it's unmodulated right at S7, and then it brings up 1 bar after that with the audio. So there's enough audio to move the meter forward just a little bit. The audio quality is not bad. It doesn't have a lot of high-end punch to it, but it does have presence, and I can hear you fine. Over. So, yeah, if you want to do it now, I'll stand by. Otherwise, you can bring it back anytime. We're open for business tonight on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Break OTR.
And hello, 56. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure that Paul has signed and he's not plugging in the microphonium. Okay, I think that's you. It was right at S7, but I'm not getting any audio if you're trying. Over. And for those watching, they notice my meter's sitting just below S7. I run the RF gain control up to bring the noise floor down so that those listening in on the Universal Media Net Web and elsewhere don't have to put up with lots of massive static. But that's about where the noise level would be with the receive preamp at about S6. So everybody is above that. Okay, one more call, Paul, and I will be here. I'm going to take... I'll take 56 for transmission, so we will be here to check things out. But just if you want to give it one more try, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I tried the old mic. The other mic on is worse than this one, so we're stuck with it. I'll let you get back to the tell them thanks a lot for standing by. Okay.
Okay, not a problem. I think I saw it. We saw it key up one or two times, but it didn't stay connected. This one is still working well and sounding good. For radio number 5, the General Radio Telephone Super, or not Super, but the General Radio Telephone MC6 from 1964. Now, let's go over to Just for Kicks. I'm stealing his punchline, even before he comes on. Hello, 56.
Oh, good evening, Dennis. I'm calling for a late chicken.
A late chicken, yeah. I figured you might have been off in the magic shop, making sure that all the steam was in the right place, or winding up in the right place. So let me go to the SWL Big Chart, and we will get you officially checked in on the Old Tube Radio Network. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. I was pretty steamed up.
Okay, you sound good now. Sounds like the steam has been released, and then sometimes that can be a good thing. The Old Tube Radio Network is standing by for radio. What radio? I've moved my chart here. Radio 7. Also want to say hello to the mighty KUH, Brian, who is in his Radio Shack tonight. And out there in Vancouver Island, BC, Mark is also listening, and OTR standing by. Trying to see if I could open the RF gain up just a little bit here, since it is quiet. OTR listening for radio number 6. All right, let me direct your attention to Spider-Man, or my shoulder here. Those are Spider-Man walkie-talkies. Mitch found those for sale somewhere. Where is Mark Daniels? That's the Spider-Man guy. If he doesn't have a set of these Spider-Man walkie-talkies, he would need them. I'm just looking at them. Where's the antenna? Does the Spider-Man arm telescope out? Can you talk to your superhero friends? And if it's Spider-Man, does it actually need batteries? And if it does need batteries, where do you put them? Inquiring minds want to know. Listening for Radio 6. Maybe that's the push to talk thing. You raise the Spider-Man arm. That's what we need. Spidey senses. His Spidey sense can figure when the skip is coming in. It sets on the right channel. Hello to some listeners tuning in early Sunday morning, Mobile, Alabama, or somewhere near that. Boonesboro, Maryland, you're listening to and or watching the Old Tube Radio Network, where we are standing by for what will be our 6th tube classic radio of the evening here on OTR, we hope.
Give the thing a try, Break OTR.
This is the Give the Thing a Try frequency. Break OTR, go ahead, over. The transmitter is working. I'll give you some chatter to see if the receive is there, if it's one of the tunable receives. You can rock the dial around to hear the Old Tube Radio Network, but I hear your transmission, Brian, over. All right, there's one from Radio Shack. And speaking of walkie-talkies, there's an ad from the mid-'70s, the Super Walkie-Talkie from Radio Shack. Now, that's one, if you believe the ad, is as big as Spider-Man. And it's the TRC-205. It had, it ran a controlled carrier. I want one of those. That was the big deal. Back in the early 70s, when I was down in Southern California, the big deal was to modify your Johnson radio, your white face, your black face, to run a controlled carrier with the switch. To get that, I don't know, maybe you could tune them up. You could put the peak output power a little bit heavier if you weren't running the full carrier. Apparently, the walkie-talkie did. This makes sense in a walkie-talkie because you're talking about battery usage, and if you're keying the radio at 100 milliwatts, but then you talk it up to 3 or 4 watts, battery power should be a lot better. I just don't know. The problem with a walkie-talkie is you probably need the resting carrier to cut through just to get the noise floor out of the way. But that would be interesting to set up as a base radio as well. The super walkie-talkie. There is Spider-Man revealed without the suit. Let me see if 49 is still out there, because you took a great transmission and then I didn't hear anything else. OTR listening for SWL 49. Okay, well, we'll keep listening, because it sounded interesting and intriguing. What we're listening for now are the jingle singers over behind all the rack equipment here in the other studio, where they will tell us about how to be in the latest, like me in my funky motor mall mouth suit in the latest style.
You're listening in the latest style.
27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio.
In wonderful
Fresno, California.
Listening for radio number 6.
7.
And hello, 37, over.
That was the Italian Job I was watching.
The Italian Job, that is the name of the movie?
It had Mark Wahlberg in it, Chelsea Thornton, or whatever we call her name. Yeah, there's a bunch of people in it, but it was a good show.
Wow, okay. So I haven't seen movies. I don't go to the movies a lot, and I think the last movie I saw was Kansas City Bomber in 1972 with Raquel Welch. So I don't even know who these people are, but that's good. Sounds like it was good, and the popcorn is gone, and you have sauntered into the radio room tonight.
Probably the only reason you was watching Kansas City Bomber so you could see Raquel Welch.
That could be. I don't know. I might have been a fan. I might have been a fan of roller derby out there at the beautiful Olympic Auditorium in downtown Los Angeles. Well, I have the number 6 position ready for your tube radio, over.
I've been there many, many times as a kid to watch that with my mom and dad and my aunts and uncles, and even my grandparents. We all went as a big family. But anyway, Dennis, I would like to check in my radio.
I am ready to take your information, over.
Okay, now, right slowly or quickly, it's the General Radio Telephone Super MC11A 24-channel tuber that glows in the dark with the old man in the wheelchair and the IV rack hanging next to him, running a stock mic.
In fact, somebody mentioned about the old man in the wheelchair. Let me put up the, let's see, the mouse isn't working. Now we go. Put up the picture. I'll have to get into the extreme close-up. There we go. If you're looking at the video, there is a logo between the channel selector at channel 11 and the S meter showing like about 5 over S9. That is a G, an R, and a T. But for a long time, we didn't know, those of us who were trying to figure out, what is that? Because this isn't on the Super MC11. It's only on the 11A. And one of the monikers, one of the skip shooting handles for SWL number 1, he used to call himself the old man in the wheelchair when he was doing skip shooting. And we thought, well, there it is. There's a picture of the old man in the wheelchair with his IV. But in reality, that was the GRT logo that made its way onto that radio. I also put in the close-up to see if they continued the bullhorn or the tone call or anything like that. And I noticed it is absent in these radios, so maybe they figured everyone had talked to their bulls by 1970 or 71 when these radios came out. Back to you.
You know what I look at? I figured they figured it out. I didn't need that bullhorn or anything out there, but this ain't loud enough they'll hear me.
Yes, it is. You are running stock audio on, there's a picture of the microphone, on the CM3, I believe. I want to say that could be a carbon microphone. But interestingly enough, that radio, they can be strapped. I think they had a 15-watt DC input if you put a little plug in the back that did some things, but the audio just isn't as good when you do that. So you've got it running full stock, and it sounds great. Over.
Harvey said he's got one of those plugs if I ever need it, but do I need it? I don't think so.
No, I can't remember if we tried it. We tried it on one, and it brings the signal up, but it brings the audio down. You lose that nice headroom that you need for the full audio. So yeah, don't touch a thing on your general radio telephone. And like you, Chris, TJ Washington, who's listening and also used to watch roller derby. We did that. It was Dick Lane. Now in Chicago, where TJ was, I don't know who the announcer was there, probably WLS, but it was Dick Lane, who I didn't know. You know, when you're a kid, you don't know who that is, but apparently he was a B-movie. He was a B-movie actor, and you know who he is. The people, the players would come up and threaten him and do all sorts of stuff. We don't do that here on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Oh yeah, well you remember we had Ralphie Valadez or something like that. He was one of the guys. He was a good blocker, little guy, but he could get around there pretty good. And then, oh hell, heavens, you had somebody named Shirley. I can't remember what her whole name was. But yeah, they come out there and go for the guest show out there and throw each other off the ring and slap them down to the infield and knock them out underneath the railings out to the audience. All kinds of good stuff. But it was good. We had a lot of fun.
I think that's it. Having a lot of fun. Before it was like before the WWF and all that was like a thing to to take the family. I will admit I went to roller derby once with my friend in I think we were in high school. We actually drove down to the Olympic Auditorium. It's one of those excuses is like, hey, I got my license, and you talk your parents into borrowing the the '62 Ford Galaxy, and off you go down Harbor Boulevard to the Olympic Auditorium or wherever it was. And I was more afraid. I still remember this, not from the players, when they had to wear the hats and throwing each other out of the ring and beating up each other. I was more afraid of the audience that would come up and throw things. And back before they would check you for weapons, I'm sure they had sharp things, and they would spit drinks in the faces. It was like you needed to stay away from the fans. That's what I remember.
Quite a ways away from them.
All right. Well, back in the day, that would have been right about the time this radio came out. The Super MC11A should have been out talking on Channel 11. Talking Skip. It's still working, Chris. Your drive around the block has been successful. The Super MC11A is our Radio 6 and also is worldwide on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Right. Thank you, Dennis. I'm going to get in here and get back my easy chair. My knee's been bothering me a lot today, so I had to do a lot of things and been hurting me all evening, so I'm going to go over here and get back in the easy chair.
Yeah, we've been getting that cold weather than the hot weather, so it could be that. Maybe if it's another, I don't know what the temperature's going to be tomorrow. We're getting another sunny day. I have to find the southern exposure and sit outside for a while. Thanks for getting us up to Radio 6 with the General Radio Telephone Super MC11A, the Old Tube Radio Network. Real radio's glowing in the dark. The Jingle Singers are excited. So am I for Radio 7 coming up next. But first, this word.
What are the magic numbers?
27.085 megahertz, channel 11.
Are the magic letters?
OTR.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Radio Magic.
Old Tube Radio.
For you.
Break OTR.
And the break OTR. You must be beaming me long path, but I hear you now.
Okay, well, hopefully it's working this time. I can hear you, and if you can hear me, that is great. Bringing by the old Hallicrafters CB3A Citizens Little Phone.
Gotta love the Hallicrafters. I was looking at the photos from the Florida Hamcation or whatever it's called, and there were a lot of Hallicrafters receivers and HT32s and the 80-pound, which I have down here somewhere, HT37s. Didn't see any of the radios that would be a little bit easier to carry like that one. Let me bring up, let's see, we want the ad for the CB3A. Popular Mechanics in July of 1963 cost just $159.95. So this was a price similar to the general radio telephones, with clear, reliable two-way communications up to 15 miles. At least they didn't lie. I mean, that's about right. And more with Hallicrafter's rugged CB3A transceiver, simple as a phone to operate, but your calls are free. You know, that's the thing. We don't mention that. Nobody, when you check in on your old tube radio, you never get a bill at the end of the month from your service provider saying that, yeah, you were 5 minutes in the old tube radio network. So keep that in mind. And 8 channels, switch controlled, no operator license required. Oh, well, you know, that's right. You license the radio. So that was pretty sneaky, because there is a license required, but it's for the radio, right? You're not licensing yourself. Let me stop talking, because you are perfect in your transmission. I heard you the first time, and then you went away, but you are back now. So fire that thing up.
Yeah, little did I know that the switch behind the squelch had gotten flipped down to the channel A control, or the VFO, using the capacitor there. And I do have the channel 11 on the F position on this radio. This does also have the optional S meter, and as I just mentioned, the variable tuning capacitor. So I guess you can tune around and figure out what crystals you want to buy. But this is the first time she's been on the air for about 6 or 7 years now, and glad she's still working and looking pretty. I really like the way this radio looks up here on the shelf. So thank you for checking it in for me.
Yeah, it's got smooth audio. You are about S8, so you're just over the way I've got my RF noise level in, but so it's not full quieting, but it's certainly got nice, smooth audio. Here is the picture of the rig. This is one out of Cliff's collection that shows the optional S meter, and then if you go to the other side of the channel selector, for those looking at the video or the picture, there is another rectangular panel that, when you remove the screws, you will put in the VFO for receive, and I'm imagining those just plug in. They were options. Pretty cool. I know, like when you bought your car in 1963 to put this in, your options were white wall tires and radio, and maybe even a heater back then, all sorts of stuff. And so Hallicrafter said, well, why don't we do that with the radio? We can keep the price down at $159, but if you do want all that stuff, then, you know, pay $12 here and $25 there and put it in yourself if you want to. CB3A sounds good. Doesn't sound like you're over amplifying the audio. Those had a tendency to flat top if you drove them too much. Let me see if I got the tube complement on that. I think it's only 7 tubes like the MC5. There's a schematic, by the way. So it shows 12 volt DC capable, not 6 volt. I thought maybe on that one it would be 6 volt. Sounding good. Take another transmission. It has been a long time. It was you checked it in before you wandered off to the east. I always remember that having great audio, and it still does. Over.
Great. Of course, have the audio chain ran in right into this radio. I haven't readjusted anything. That's pretty well, everything. The audio's still set up for the 101. So glad to hear it is sounding good and doing its thing, because we enjoy using it. Certainly. I thought I had up here in the space where there is yet another Bozo. I had a CB3A that was from Chris's SWL37's collection that was here. And the receiver is a little wonky on it, so I can't really use it as a net control station. However, I did the same thing. I ran it through the audio board, and I was super duper amazed at how good the audio sounded. And I was lucky enough, I have a pin made up that fits the Browning. It's the 2-pin plug, and I believe that's right. And it actually is the same configuration for the Hallicrafter, so I was able to patch into the iBox and run it straight in. And I was totally amazed without doing any, capacitor
changes or feeding into modulators or whatever. It just was really, really nice audio. It was just night and day difference between the supplied carbon microphone and all of that. But you just got to be careful. If you don't run some compression or something, you will get flat topping. Talking to our Radio 7, 49er Brian is on the Helicrafters CB3A. Haven't heard it in a while, but we're glad it is back. We'll go back to you for another transmission. And Helicrafters, I've got a lot. I've got a shortwave receiver and my AM broadcast receiver, my very first set of walkie-talkies that got me onto 11 meters were the Helicrafters CB11As. So give us another transmission. Thanks.
Just that I was quite impressed with the audio that this radio was able to pass as well as, compared to, say, my Browning that has the audio frequency limiting circuitry in there. You don't really get any nice lows out of it. Again, I was really impressed with the audio this radio was able to pass. So let's see if we can get another one warmed up out here, and we thank you kindly and hope to be back here soon.
Okay, sounds good. And this is when Helicrafters was still in Chicago, Department 76, 9th, and it looks like Kastner Avenue. Later on, they started sort of farming things out to Japan, and they became a subsidiary of the Northrop Grumman, but back when it was just Northrop Aircraft Corporation, and that's how I got. In fact, somewhere around here, I showed it one time. I have a price list from 1969. It was an employee price list, because if you worked at Northrop, you were actually an employee of Helicrafters, and that's how I picked up the walkie-talkies and my first FM 1000 radios, because my dad could get an employee discount, so I could save all my pennies and buy that $29 radio. But this is before those days, back when it was really Helicrafters and Bill Halligan and the group. The Old Tube Radio Network, Real Radio's Glowing in the Dark. The Jingle Singers are yet excited about telling you what it is we do, so let's let them do that, and we will listen for Radio 8 after that.
Let's do some spelling.
OTR. 27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio. Old Tube Radio.
And Roberts, Captain Keyboard, giving a shout out to DD21, Mr. JT, who it's very late over there. So I have a feeling he may have the sleep timer on the Tram Titan and might not be hearing us, but I'm sure if he's watching the video or the big screen, he would say hello. Mr. JT, SWL21 host, who hosts Old Radio Night. That happens a few hours before this net on the West Coast, and he features a different vintage radio each week. And all the gang of regulars, the gang of crazies that check in on Old Radio Night. So check that out. There's actually a link on the Old Tube Radio Net site. If you scroll down, you will see that. Looking for radio number 8. Open up the RF gain a little bit more here. They're quiet tonight. Take it to about an S6 noise level. Hopefully that's not too annoying. All right, I think I have the photo here. Let me see if it's there. Yes. And this is from Ralph McConnell. This is a Super Satellite 2. A radio that I don't believe in our 35 years we have ever had anybody that had those or checked one in. And in theory, this is a Demco prototype. They didn't make too many, but Ralph has acquired the 3-piece radio. Let me see if I can get the full picture. There we go. I can even get better than that. And he's got it set up in his shack, but notice it still keeps the same red and green meter motif, the separate speaker with the built-in modulator. That Super Satellite 2 is a very rare radio, but I've been following his posts. And boy, we would certainly wish we were in the local area there to snag that on our radio's heard list. But he is putting it all together, firing it up, doing it right, taking it slow, and getting the thing on the air. And that is the way to do it, wherever you are with your, when you find something cool like that, it's always fun to hang on to it. Find a spot in your Radio Shack and fire it up, see if it works. Bring it up slowly and do that. But the Super Satellite 2 from Demco, very rare, and I don't recall if it's 40 channels or not. But I'll pretty much guarantee that we have not heard one, ever had one check in on the old Tube Radio Network. Looking for radio number 8. Oh, and you are still up. You must be. Hello, DD21. SWL21 must be hitting the coffee pot tonight because he is still up and listening. He is 10-8. Boy, that's something. I used to use a 10 code. That's how you were official. You would use your call and say KEO 8492 10-8 and 10-10, just in case the FCC is listening. So you could say, see how professional I am? And then they would still come and bust you because your antenna was over 20 feet off the roof and you would just talk idle chit-chat communications. But at least you signed off really cool. Couple minutes left here, the old Tube Radio Network. If you are thinking about checking in, still plenty of time to turn on a cold radio, let it warm up. If you got one warming up, think about checking it in before we sign out here tonight, the old Tube Radio Network. Hello, radio, over.
Yes, this is SWL 40 waking up from my nap.
From a long winter's nap?
Yes. From a long, deadly viral winter.
Well, hopefully you are not on the 2-week quarantine yet.
And sounds like Harvey is out there. Well, I might have to drag the old tube radio out. How many minutes we got?
We have at least 5 to 10 minutes, probably, after we get through with everything. But you know the old Tube Radio Network, we never turn down a Tube Radio check-in if the 6L6 is still glowing. Like that one. All right, we got you checked in. Good morning, good night, good evening, Larry. Thanks for listening to the old Tube Radio Network. And I would say that it's very possible, as I try and find my old Tube Radio list once again, that we may have Radio 8. Hello, Harvey.
Yes, you do. The Golden Beagle R68 T68 by Browning Laboratories. Custom D104 unamp microphone with the Browning medallion on the back. 3-piece unit, if you include the 180, which I pretty much never use. It just sits there and looks pretty. Anyway, so here this one is, and I'll kind of keep it short because I'm a little tired. So there we go. Anyway, we'll catch you next week. I should be a little bit more rested, I hope, and possibly be checking some other radios in.
Okay, well, thanks for jumping out into the radio room tonight to give us the R68 T68. There's the full-page color Browning advertisement that probably ran sometime somewhere in 1967 and 1968 to tout the greatness of this $400 radio that had 2 versions, the Series 1 and the Series 2, plus the optional speaker, which we're showing in the optional case that we are not. Yeah, when you come back next week, maybe, I don't know if you heard or saw, we showed the picture of the Demco Satellite 2. We have to talk about that a little bit, because Harvey has one of, speaking of prototype radios, Harvey has one of the rare prototypes that that General Radio Telephone put out. So in the meantime, let's go back to you for one more transmission, and then you may scamper back into the other part of the Radio Shack that is a lot warmer and more comfortable. Over.
You betcha. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I saw that before I came in. Looked at it. Yeah, that's a nice one. I think I've seen one on eBay, but didn't bid on it or anything like that. And yes, I do have the prototype for the General Radio Telephone Super MC100. It's one that I believe they were testing at the factory. It's got the 4 meters that the radio is supposed to have, but the meters do not say General Radio Telephone. One's an S meter, one's totally blank. The modulation meter is a view meter that you might see on a stereo, and the SWR meter is a DC milliamp meter. Yeah, I think that's what that is, yeah. Anyway, it does not say General Radio Telephone on the front, as it should, but definitely it is. Inside the radio, by the way, you do have a switch for an internal dummy load for testing or doing whatever. Big old resistor, and on that resistor is printed
general radio telephone. Plus, it actually still has at least 2, if not more, tubes that say general radio telephone on them, which I believe probably are the original tubes for this thing. Picked it up for next to nothing down in Los Angeles. Anyway, it's a nice radio. It's got the turret tuner that most people are familiar with the Super Series. However, it's a double turret tuner. Boy, that's hard to say. Double turret tuner with one turret right behind the other, so you have the transmit crystals either in the front or the rear, and then the opposite, okay? So one turret has the transmit crystals, the other turret has the receive crystals. So there are 2 crystals for each channel in this one, which is not the way they did the other Super Series. So anyway, okay, we'll turn it back to you.
Back to me in the studio. I found the photo of that and had that up while you were on the video side and the .net side, so people kind of look at as you were talking about it. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's a Franken rig, sort of. And it also had the other thing with the dual speakers, which I thought was neat. And you said the built-in dummy loads. A lot of the things of the prototypes, it's like, why didn't they? A built-in dummy load is not a bad thing to have on your radio for testing. And then I wonder if the DAC, like the DAC 9s and the DAC 10s were out at this time, they also had the 4 meters, or if this was something they thought, hey, that's cool, let us do it, or maybe DAC saw this and say, hey, we can do better. But I think that's the only other 4-metered radio that I can remember that was around. All right, at 3 minutes after the hour here, Jingle Singers are ready to go. I'm going to do some counting and mounting. We'll talk more about radios when you return next week, and I will be listening for any last-minute check-ins. Over.
OTR.
Now that does sound like the old man in the wheelchair. Go ahead.
Yes, this is SWL 40 checking in my old tube radio.
Hey, we like old tube radios. We'll let you check them in. And I must say that old tube radio is fully ADA compliant. We are a wheelchair accessible venue, just in case anyone is wondering. So, station, go ahead. You will be radio number 9.
And you know, and this is a transgender-friendly transceiver. The Gemtronics GTX 5000 40-channel CB transceiver base station.
The GTX 5000 in the Panasonic chassis. And our first and probably only 40-channel radio tonight, similar to the Robin T240D, the T-Berry T, the Shakespeare, the Colt, and all of that. I'm thinking you have some, because I've heard this before, I'm thinking you have some different microphone on that tonight. But maybe I misspeak. Go ahead.
Well, yes, this microphone is actually a base station mic. It's called the Turner Plus 3 microphone. But there's no B or A. It's just a Turner Plus 3. And it is amplified.
Oh, the Plus 3. I may have one sitting on a desk here. Okay, it sounds like it may have an element issue or something. It's totally missing any high frequencies on it, but it sounds good and it's making the radio work.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Hello. Well, maybe at a later time. Yeah. Well, Well, it could be that, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's checked in just in the nick of time.
Yes, Radio 9 at 5 minutes after 10 o'clock on the Pacific Coast, the Gemtronics GTX 5000. Those may have been, those Panasonic series radios may have been plate modulated. So it's doing fine. Over.
Okay, great. And the mice are getting rowdy. I think it's time. It's feeding time. That must be it. Okay. SWL 40 is now signing off.
Okay, as long as you know where the food is or you are not the food.
Well, it depends on how deeply I sleep.
Okay. Well, that doesn't sound good at all. All right, thanks for stopping by. We apologize for ruining your nap. Well, actually, we didn't ruin your nap. You could have been dreaming that you checked in, and then you would watch the video the next day and realize that you didn't. So when you watch the video, you will realize that this wasn't a dream.
Contact.
And the speaking of dreams, the I think that's the Morgan Canyon Dream Station. The contact, go ahead.
Whatever, man. Hello, Dennis. 708, check-in, please, sir.
I've got you at 7 minutes after 10 o'clock. SWL70, I almost dropped all the papers on the floor. Mark is one of the net controllers. Let me speak as net controllers and net controller. When you're doing the check-ins on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time on 28.445 on the upper sideband 10-meter net, do you have paperwork, or are you on the 21st century and you're sitting in front of a keyboard doing something, or are you not doing anything? Is there no reason to have a log of who checked in? And if this is secret information that is only to be divulged to net control operators, I understand your lack of wanting to answer this question. Over.
Yeah, it's pretty secret stuff. We've got a spreadsheet, and it gets updated. And I don't know what the other guys do if they go right off their screen, but I usually print out 2 pages that just has the names, so I can go down and do it manually, like old school, because I'm an old guy, and then I'll go back and enter it into on the Excel sheets afterwards. Whether the other guys are doing the same or not, you have to check with Jerry and Dwayne and the other Jerry. Although the other Jerry, I think, finally lost his antenna or something. But does that answer your question?
That answers my question. This is sort of what I should be doing and could be doing, and then I wouldn't have just like boxes and boxes of paper all over the place. I could just go and say, oh, look what happened 25 years ago. And there's all the check-ins, there's all the radios. And well, when we first started doing this, I think only one person had a computer. Maybe nobody had a computer, because we used to hand draw. We used to write all the papers out by hand because we had to give the list to other net controllers. And so at the end of 8 weeks, you had to redo everything by hand because the SWLs would change and all that. And then somebody finally got a computer with a printer. And of course it was, the lousy printers of the 80s. So, all right, I just wanted to know. I just wanted to see how archaic things were around here.
Yeah. Stuff changes, man. I mean, we used to do, way back in the early 80s, 79, 80, somewhere in there, I worked at a gas station back in the old days when there were gas stations, and you had a little swipe thing, the imprinter for the credit card, and then you got a book, I think, once a month, one for Visa and one for MasterCard, if I remember right. And it was just a little pamphlet with like 100-something pages with all the numbers. You had to scroll through there to make sure that card was not in that list. I think that's what it was. But that was your way of verifying whether the card was valid or fraudulent.
I think I remember that. When I worked at Fresno Ag, I didn't do cashier stuff, but I know they had that And like you said, it was really, really tiny numbers that they had to kind of, search through and make sure that those who actually had cards would do that. I like the really old ads that come up on the ham and the CB radio things where, each dealer, separate. It wasn't, four amateur radio dealers. It's just all the radio electronics dealers had their own, $4 down and pay us $12 a month for the next 18 months and walk out of here with the radio. And a lot of the manufacturers had things like that as well. So before the days of credit cards or putting things on layaway. All right. You've answered my question. You have stayed much longer than you probably intended, but that's okay, because we enjoy talking to you, and we will hear you next time on the Old Tube Radio Network.
No, thank you, Dennis, and no problem. We're getting some stuff together. It's the wife's birthday tomorrow, so we're like getting all our top secret birthday stuff ready tonight. So it's all good. Thanks very much for doing the net. Appreciate it. Let's see, I was going to sign off. Okay, 70.
Yeah, it's like, which number, which license thing do I look at? What am I supposed to say on the sign off? You did it correctly for the Old Tube Radio Network, or just buy or whatever. Don't like we said, you don't have to have numbers. You don't have to have ever been on in any previous 35-year thing to come in and take a transmission on OTR. Boy, one of the lights just got really bright. Now I got video. I have to have lights up there. Also, hello to, who did I just see? Canton, Texas. William, who is listening in, beaconing in. Probably has a great station of radios. I wish we could hear you here at 10:13 in the evening on the West Coast, but Texas is going to be a little bit tough on 11 meters. It might actually hear you on 75. The Tube Radio, our jingle singers are going to do what they do best when we're about ready to put things to bed here.
You're tuned to
OTR. Channel 11.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Stay with us.
Old Tube Radio.
And be modern.
SWL checking in number 7.
Oh, when I was counting and amounting, we will go to page 1. Let's see, I have the thing now where if I do this, you actually see the little check-in thing come up. So I do that, and we go to SWL7, and it pops in the screen, and then if I do that, it says, blink, you are checked in, hey. And hopefully you walk in the door a few pounds heavier from all the quarters.
Well, as a matter of fact, I actually more than doubled my money, so it was a very good night.
Perfect. Then we will not. We certainly won't dock you any pay from the Old Tube Radio Network if you can. And plus, you checked in. See, so it was a win-win situation. Every day should be like that.
Oh, there you go. A double win. Can't argue with that.
All right, we've got you checked in. That will bring the total on page 1 up and the final total up another notch. So thanks.
Thank you. 73.
And last call for radios, the Old Tube Radio Network. Okay, let's give this is the cue. They are gathering around. The orchestra is ready. And here we go. The fanfare.
Ladies and gentlemen, time now for the current OTR totals.
This will be your current and final totals for the Old Tube Radio Network here on a 2020 Feb 8th net happening, where we had, how many radios did we have? 9 radios tonight. It's been quiet. It's been quiet all day. I guess I'm pleased that we actually had nine radios. It's our first sort of nice little summery day in February, so a lot of people were probably out doing things. And like you've heard, a couple of our stations came in and went and took a nap. And remembered that the Saturday night place to be is always here on your 11-meter radio. 13 check-ins on page 1, 13 check-ins on page 2, 14 check-ins on page 3, and 15 check-ins on page 4. It's pretty solid with the SWLs tonight. 55. And, of course, those of you tuning in at oldtuberadio.net who we wish we had some conditions to hear your great radios from California, Ohio, Maryland, Wisconsin, the UK, Tennessee, British Columbia, Virginia, New York, Minnesota, Maryland, and a host of others. We do archive the audio. If you go to oldtuberadio.net, you will see the, I think it says archives. The OTR magnetophone comes on and takes a while to load up all the little reel-to-reel tapes. They're somewhere recording in the back room, and you can pick a date, and whether it's an SWL or a tube radio check-in, and give yourself a radio check. We keep the video up for a while, too, to do the same thing. Radios tonight, 9, as I said, the most heard manufacturer. I'm supposed to actually say that right after the drum roll, and I always forget. The most heard manufacturer tonight from beautiful downtown Burbank, the General Radio Telephone, starting off with radio number 1 and the General Radio Telephone SB72. From sometime in the early 1960s, 63, 64, 65, not a prototype, actual, you could buy it for sale from General Radio Telephone and get on single sideband. That was not a double sideband radio, it was a single sideband radio. 3 years after that, the Tram and the Regency came out with double sideband, and then I guess the rest is history. The only thing is you had to find, if you wanted to do sideband, you had to find somebody to talk to. So you basically needed to buy another $400 SB72. Thanks, Paul. Interesting radio. Radio number 2, Jerry on the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB. One of the 2 Brownings tonight. General Radio Telephone's at 4. And Browning's at 2. Then the T-Craft Falcon, great audio from 1959 on a radio that you would think, wow, doesn't look like it would sound that good, but pretty cool. But back in 59 and 60, it was, well, what can we do? There was really no set. This is what a CB radio should do, and this is what it should look like. So build your own and try and sell it. Radio number 3. Radio number 4, the General Radio Telephone MC5. The last one with the tone call, the Q-Bird. Score 1 for the Q-Bird tonight. It sounded good. Radio number 5, Paul on the General Radio Telephone MC6 with the bullhorn. I don't know if there's any way to test a bullhorn. I think he would have to have an external speaker set up. And then you'd have to have another radio. And then you'd have to key up on that one and then do the bullhorn. Something we can work on. Radio number 6, the General Radio Telephone Super, 3 in a row, Super MC11A. Chris and his friend, the old man in the wheelchair, are firing that one up. Radio 7, Brian, 49er on the Hallicrafter CB3A with a little bit of hi-fi audio going through, and that radio will pass it just nicely, just fine. Radio number 8, Harvey on the Golden Eagle R68 T68, the first, the Mark None, and the Mark 1. Well, really not the Mark 1, but the first of the Golden Eagle series from Browning. And then, as you heard moments ago, the Gemtronics GTX 5000 with the Turner Plus 3 microphonium for our new old radio of the night from 1976 and 77. So that's our newest radios, are still 40-something years old, aren't they? Just like me. Thanks to SearchLawrence.com and Frodex for keeping the Nixie tubes running, and of course our tube radio operators and SWLs that keep us running, and the wardrobe department, and Bob and Steve for the wardrobe. I'm not having a wardrobe malfunction with the official OTR shirt. Catch everybody next time. Hopefully you do something like this, a get on the air night with your radios. Doesn't have to be vintage, but just to keep the bands going as we sort of hang out and wait for the DX to come back. Then you won't be able to hear all those local stations that you're talking to now, but you'll have fun talking to the ones that are 151 miles plus away. So good night, everybody. And let's see, what else? I think that's it. Oh, now let me check the chart to make sure there's not some pending question while I take an old buzzer transmission to say goodnight. Now I'll just say goodnight, everybody, the Old Tube Radio Network.
Thank you for the net, Dennis. Have a good night, fella.
Thank you, Dennis. Good night.
Hey, I made it through, and everything still seems to be working.
And of course, thank you to Bozo Control.
Baker Oscar, Zulu Oscar, Bozo Control from the Bozone. Let's see, there's one there, and there's one back here somewhere, and of course there is the infamous honking proboscis that we have been hearing for the last 35 years, the Old Tube Radio Network. And how do you turn this thing off? Oh, do we want to listen for anything?
Ah, glad I made it back in time.
Do we want to see what's on 75 meters tonight? Probably nothing with my horrible antenna. Hey. There's some AM guys.
So what I did is I loaded it. It's ready to go. All I got to do is put a little more gas in it. And tomorrow, if I have time,
3870.
I'll do some more weed whacking and
Not
one
bad.
more tank of gas and one more feet of line. And
Some AM on 3870 here on the West Coast.
Oh, I sold the riding lawnmower too. The guy came by for it, picked it up, had a truck, so I had these two.
I need a riding lawnmower. Nothing on the East
Coast. From the truck, pointed his truck downhill to kind of lower the thing, because at first we were starting to drive that tractor up on the truck, and
that's not bad. I bet he's running.
With the angle.
Bet he's running full legal limit.
The truck is pointed it downhill and then up lower things.
Not much on sideband, so that's interesting. AM's the place to be. AM's the place to be on your 75-meter phone band tonight.
More into 40 meters. Japan, Australia. Sometimes you get an island or so.
There's some guys on 3930.
Yeah, they're all down on the low end of 40.
No, I take that back. 3928. And I'm only hearing one of them, so the band is in not in good shape with a lousy antenna.
It did kind of, after I got home, I really didn't.
Back to the AM guy. Good night, everybody. The Old Tube Radio Network.
Change my clothes.
Get on the air. Get on the air this week. We'll see you in 7 days.
Did a little ham radio stuff.
Mitch, I need that riding lawnmower.
So, but I really celebrate the Lord. I thank the Lord for His goodness. It could have been a whole lot worse. So, it's going to need a wiring harness. A wiring harness and the dashboard and the what do you call it, the instrument channel, all of that stuff readily available.
That's the noise reduction. Noise reduction just isn't. It's still 20th century on this radio.
See what happens. Anyway, that's that, and
I should know this guy's call, but I don't. And he's going to fade out when he gives it.
Oh, here's the, well, he's got an emotion, so that's one of the challenges right now. Yeah, that's what it's really, they know how to deal with that. The fluid in the lungs not good. So,
the golden eagle with the grass catcher.
Talk to you later. I got on the one collector's net tonight. There's three of us. Mike got on, ZSR, and at first the band was really good.
I think driving that tractor and holding the D104.
All right, talk to you later. Sleep well. Have a good day tomorrow, and probably catch you tomorrow night.
Here it comes.
KF6SYD, W6YED.
W6YED, I think.
Okay, Tim.
Hey, I hear the other guy, too.
Oh, my. The pneumonia is good in the one.
When the band is rough, you got to run full legal limit.
For quite some time. Oh, George, I don't blame you for not going back to the yard. Can you imagine? You don't have to imagine me doing it, but, there you are driving the car, it's on fire, and you're going, come on, right, come on, car, move.
That's through the tuner, which is set for 11 meters. All right, I've got I've got an install I have to do on a tractor. Put the Hallicrafters on the hand. Do they even have a spawn? I have to look at the riding lawnmowers. Probably have to have some type of a helmet. You probably get extra points for that in the contest, too. Good night, everybody, from the Old Tube Radio Network. 73. We hit the big red button.